The Man Everybody Was Afraid of, a Dave Brandstetter mystery. Book 4 in the series. Author Joseph Hansen. Publisher Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 8. Richard T. Noel said, They get overexcited. The hand-loom jacket he'd worn in that snatch of film David seen at KSDC TV hung in some closet now. He had on only swim trunks. His spare, tanned body didn't show his age. Neither did his hair, which had been to that high-priced barber again. It was gray, but it grew thick and healthy. What showed his age were his eyes, hard, bright, and weary. Eyes that had seen too much and doubted most of it. Hispanos, as alike as jumping beans. There is no reality, only romance. Carventes knew it in 1605. Nothing's changed. He lay with a silvery drink in his hand on a chase of aluminum tubing and bright yellow flowered fabric on a terrazza in back of a hillside house, like Ben Orton's. Rough white stucco, grilled windows, red tiled roofs. It looked as if repair work was underway on the roofs. Stacks of new tiles occupied a corner of the terrazza, along with trowels, buckets, ladders, an ornamental iron gate opened into the property from above. There was a tennis court where youths in shorts batted a yellow ball over a green net. Long stairs led down here. Another long flight dropped to a blue pool where young men laughed and splashed. Below the pool, a brushy fold in the fall-off of land, but put the highway out of sight. Beyond lay the small roofs of La Calita, the bay with its tiny white boats, the rusty jut of the old cannery, the sparkling ocean. Dave said, "He told me you and Curly were enemies. Hated each other's guts. Always had." "Cliff didn't need enemies," Wolf said. He had himself. A blond youth with a long, smooth swimmer's muscles came out French doors onto the terrace. Maybe his trunks weren't as small as possible, but they looked it. Noel fluttered fingers at him. "Get Mr. Brandstetter a drink, will you?" He looked at Dave. "What shall it be?" "It has been Mexican beer." Dave smiled at the youth. That was easy. "Whatever's in the fridge?" The boy smiled back, said, "Lowenbrow," firmly, and took Noel's empty glass into the house. "Winning child," Noel said, looking after him. "He was slated for the Olympics. Did nothing but train. From the age of 8. Isn't it insane?" His father said he'd have made the team, but there were locker room problems. "Come to you in trouble, do they?" Dave asked. "By referral. Doctors, lawyers, agencies, juvenile authorities, even the odd police department." Dave blinked at the noisy pool below, at the flock of balls on rackets above. "All of them?" No. Noel shook his head, amused. "These are mostly just neighbor children. Come to play. You know how it is when you have a pool." Dave grinned. "Awful nuisance." "Hateful." Noel's hard eyes twinkled. "No, the county's handling down at the office. Now and then I have a case who lives here. There's plenty of room. Boys, girls, and parents, of course." As if on cue, a stocky man with a mat of gray hair on his sagging chest came around a corner of the house. He wore floppy surfer trunks, a loud Hawaiian shirt, and clogs. He carried towels. He was bald, and his sunburned scalp was peeling. A woman followed him. She was burned too dark and had starved herself to keep her figure right for a bikini, and had almost managed it. The smile these people gave Noel showed astonishing teeth. The man had to be a dentist, self-conscious. They nudged each other down toward the hectic pool. "Do they pay?" Dave said. "We're a non-profit educational." "You always were," Dave said. "Only I remember you in a pair of dingy offices around 3rd and Main in L.A., building about to be torn down." Noel laughed. "Who used to beat pans and shriek in the hall. he said, to warn the rats who were coming. It was nice to have them out, but they never tidied up before they left. Yes, those were the bad old days. A second-hand mimeograph, 3 frightened faggots, and a cause. 25 years ago. You came there. You were amicus curiae in the case of a friend. He didn't have a car. I did. I picked him up at your place one day in the rain. We shook hands, but I don't expect you to remember. You must have been amicus curiae to a good many bewildered school teachers, plucked naked out of steam baths. We were in court more hours than we slept. You had a magazine, too, Dave said. Don't I remember an obscenity case? Poor, pathetic little rag, Noel said. By today's standards, it was tame as a Sunday school paper, but it helped. It told thousands of sad, lonely boys and men all over this country that they weren't the only ones. You should have seen the letters, the pitiful dollar bills. Yes, there was an obscenity case. We fought it. We fought the police, the civil service, the armed forces. There was so much to fight. There still is. But you quit, Dave said. Why? Quit? Noel said sharply. Who says I quit? Besides Rodriguez, Dave said. Daisy Flynn and Benton Orton's window. But mostly, Dave looked at the place. All of this. The swimmer brought back his tightly packaged genitals, his smile and the drinks. He went whooping down the stairs toward the pool. Dave said, This didn't come out of a pitiful dollar bills. They were never enough, Noel said. It was my own money that kept us going. You should have seen how I had to live, a quarter century of cockroaches, crackers, and peanut butter. It wasn't only court cost. Men were fired, boys were thrown out at home. People tried to kill themselves, mutilate themselves. They needed doctors, psychiatrists, jobs, a roof over their heads. Those 2 a.m. phone calls, Dave said. Someone had to answer. Someone had to come up with the money. Dave looked at the house. From here? Noel snorted. Least of all, my father made Ben Orton look like a left-wing radical. You could imagine the rejoicing when his only son turned out to be a bird of bright plumage. The festivities went on for months. I cherished his parting words. That looking at me made him want to vomit. Dave's father said, You're full of surprises, Dave said. I kept waiting for you to guess. No, Noel said. I had a little annuity from a great aunt. And then 4 years ago, 5, with a crooked smile, he tried his drink. My father died, happily. He was the self-made type. Tall in the saddle, short in the brain. He distrusted Jew shysters, his pet term for lawyers. Ergo, he made such an incompetent will that I ended up with this house he never wanted me to set foot in, and all his money. The smile went away. What did Daisy Flynn say to make you think I'd quit? I'd never quit. I saw her introduction to a TV interview. Dave tasted the German beer. American refrigeration had numbed it. You and Curly on the matter of Ben Orton's refusal to hire homosexuals. She said the 2 of you disagreed. I knew how Curly felt. How you felt had to follow. If you'd seen the interview, a striped beach ball shedding bright water flew over the balustrade. Noel had quick reflexes. He hit it with the flat of a hand. It arced high and dropped. Cheers came from below. You'd have heard Cliff raving on about getting a petition showing that the citizens of La Calita wanted fruity cops, even if their police chief didn't. It was an insane ideal, like every other ideal Cliff Carley ever had. He got the signatures, Dave said. How? You'd never guess it to look at him, Noel said. But he's a great charmer of women. The gypsy syndrome or something. Those wild eyes. You could bet 9/10 of those signatures were written in dishwashing liquid. Can't you just see the poor things in their curlers and damp blue jeans, blushing and stammering and scorching the TV dinners while that hypersexed aging adolescent lounged in the kitchen doorway, looking sullen and rubbing his crotch. You're forgetting why he was there, Dave said. They'd have to know he was bent. Women never believe that, Noel scoffed. Each of them harbors a secret conviction that men are only homosexual because they haven't met the right woman. Herself, of course. Cliff knows that, and he uses it. It didn't help, Dave said. Ben Orton wasn't wearing curlers. I warned Cliff. Noel watched Dave hunch over the steel lighter to start a cigarette in the sea wind. On that interview, and later, so Rodriguez says. Smoke from the cigarette blew away, thin and quickly. Dave pocketed the lighter. You were there Saturday morning, early, telling him to cancel the demonstration? Rodriguez says you grabbed the petitions to tear them up. There was a fight. You rolled around together on the floor? Noel showed neat, feral little teeth. I wasn't hurt. I'm not big, but I'm wiry. You're also over 40, Dave said. Noel shrugged. It's not my way of solving problems. It's Cliff's. But he's not built for it, and he's not prepared. I was a commando in the U.S. Army. If Rodriguez hadn't been there, his friend would have gone to the hospital. But you don't hate him, Dave said dryly. A tall, fleshly young man in a red chef's hat and a red chef's apron came fussily into the terrace, wheeling a round red enamel barbecue outfit. Are y'all gonna be ready to eat in an hour? He asked the air. He had a loud voice, but Noel acted as if he hadn't heard. A yellow and black sack of charcoal leaned against a stack of tiles. The apron man picked it up. They ever gonna finish this roof? Maybe he didn't expect an answer because he made a lot of noise, emptying briquettes into the belly of the grill. Did y'all call him? Shut up, Harv, Noel said without turning. Dick, I told you I'd call him. Harv moved with wiggles and flounces. He set the sack back in place. All you have to do is say for me to call him, and I'll call him. He poured lighter fluid from a flat can onto the coals. I declare, with all this junk piled up here, there's just no room for a person to move. Harv, shut up, Noel said again. How's a person supposed to cook? Harv bent and took from under the barbecue a cardboard tube printed with kitchen-y flowers. A long match came out of this. If y'all didn't get your ribs or steaks or chicken on the dot at 6, he struck the match, stood well back, turned away his face, and poked the flame at the coals. The lighter fluid whooshed. It'd be me y'all would bitch at. Dick, are you listening to me? I'll call them tomorrow, Noel said. Now shut up, will you? Y'all say that every night. Harv flapped at the coals with his apron. Smoke swirled up. Now if y'all don't remember tomorrow, I'll declare I'm just going to call them myself, that's all. If you call them, you'll quarrel with them, and they'll never come back. Well, just look here what they did. Spilled all that wet martyr dribbles of it all along here. Hard as a rock. Look how ugly that looks. He coughed in the smoke. Who's going to clean that up? Not me. I've got plenty to do around here already. He fitted a grill over the coals. And look how they stacked these tiles. They're toppling over, Dick. He bumped one of the stacks hard with a well-padded hip. One of these days, one of them is going to slip right off. They're heavy. If one of them falls on somebody down there, it could kill them. If it falls on that side, it can only kill a ground squirrel, Noel said. Now, as you can see, I have a guest, and I'd appreciate it if you'd shut up. I'll get the steaks. Harv went away. Noel acted as if there had been no interruption. He said to Dave, No, I didn't hate him. You don't hate a madman. You try to keep him from hurting himself. I went to the nursery that morning to try and stop him making a laughingstock of himself and every other homosexual that walks. That demonstration was going to drop his chances of getting what he wanted to 0. Where did his troops come from? Dave asked. They didn't look like they belonged here. From L.A., the seedier bars, the slimier bass. Had he phoned them? Would Rodriguez let him? He wouldn't have to, not if that press conference of Orton's was on television. Noel raised his head. Gulls came over the high red roof, wings creaking, straining into the onshore wind headed for the beach. They'd see it as only one thing, the chance for a demonstration. Noise, obscene gestures, dirty words, and signs. If possible, riot and arrest. Maybe with luck, a bloody head never accomplishes anything. That's why they love it. Another chance at defeat, and of course, their leader was here. Why was he here? Dave asked. I mean, Rodriguez told me his reason for getting Cliff out of L.A. You'd left those 2 a.m. phone calls for him to answer all alone. Noel made a small, sour sound. God help the poor callers. They didn't know what trouble was before they picked up that phone. He could double it for them by noon. Listen to me. I never stopped answering. I certainly did not leave everything to him. They stopped calling you, Dave said. Exactly. In our mousy little office with our mousy little magazine, minding our business, getting things done. Then all of a sudden, here come the clowns. Calliopes, elephants, performing seals. The television people went mad. Naturally. I mean, anyone making a total ass of himself is bound to raise ratings. And everybody always knew homosexuals were a bunch of overgrown little girls painting their faces and getting themselves up in mommy's best organdy. What more could the media ask for? Never a 5-minute serious discussion, but screaming queens. Ha ha! Isn't it killing? It made them easy to find, Dave said. Do y'all know? Harvey came bustling out, carrying a metal tray heaped with steaks. What the 2 main floats were in the first parade down Hollywood Boulevard. He set the tray on a formica top table with fold-down aluminum tube legs. A crucified fairy with jeweled purple wings and a 10-foot-high jar of Vaseline. What every bigot knew about homosexuality and never needed to ask. Noel answered Dave. It made us impossible to find. Steaks hit the grill and sizzled in his red apron. Harv went at a wiggle to lean over the balustrade. He waved a long-handled fork and shouted down at the pool. Y'all better get your showers because it is supper time. The wind took off his chef's hat. He was bald under it. With a yelp, he chased it across the terrazza. I'll go, Dave said, and stood. Harv was on hands and knees in a far corner. Only his broad blue denimed butt, the red bow of the apron, the white soles of his Adidas showed, but his hearing was good. Y'all are welcome, stay. His voice came muffled. Fresh corn of the cob? Genuine Mississippi beaten biscuits? He pulled the hat from behind the stacks of tiles, sat back on his heels, slapped dust off the hat. Homemade Texas pecan pie. Sounds great, Dave said, but I have an appointment. Go fetch him. Harv stood up and settled the puffy red hat on his dome. Bring him back. He's welcome. It's not that kind of appointment, Dave said, and to Noel, didn't they sort of make it easier for you to get on with what you were doing? Fewer interruptions? What really needed doing, Noel said, wasn't parades and picket lines and protests. It was changing the laws. For 20 years, we tried single-handed. Now and then, some new assemblyman, still wet from the egg, would flutter into the lion's den with a timid little bill. They always ate him. Noel sighed and pushed up from the chase. Then, at long last, we got an experienced man on our side. He moved his mock teenager's body to the top of the stairs. Someone who could do it right, who had the necessary committee chairmanships, the necessary power. And you got the laws changed, Dave said. We did not. Noel leaned out to peer down at the pool. Come on, you tragic misfits. He turned back to Dave. Not then. We rounded up 20 expert witnesses, psychiatrists, law professors, police chiefs. Not Ben Orton, Dave said. Noel gave him a pitying look and went on. We sat at long hearing room tables, being glared at by bleary-eyed political hacks who went after us day after day with questions like dull castration knives. Then we waited. The boys from the pool came scrambling up the stairs, water streaming from long, wet dog hair, and laying a glaze on uncompleted bodies. They waved towels like Gideons. A couple of them brushed Noel's sunken cheek with kisses before they followed the rest, laughing, shouting, dodging into the house. Noel's neat little teeth smiled after them a moment, then he saw Dave again and went back to his story. Finally, a phone call came from Sacramento. Our friend had lined up the votes, a slim majority, but enough. His mouth twisted. Unless you remembered Cliff Curley. What had he had to do with it? A hefty girl with flushed cheeks and chopped blonde hair came out the French doors. She wore tight, faded jeans over bulging hips. Her short-sleeved sweatshirt was stenciled Oakland Raiders. She pushed a stainless steel restaurant cart on wheels. The shelves were loaded with plates, cutlery, napkins, drinking glasses. A girl who could have been her twin followed, hands in padded oven mittens, lugging a boiler that steamed. When she set it down and Harv removed the lid, Dave saw bobbing ears of corn. Harv poked at them and put back the lid. Noel said, "He took his troops, as you call them, to the Capitol, and when the vote came up, they rushed screaming onto the floor, trailing chiffon scarves and clouds of dime store perfume, and hugging and kissing every legislator they could catch." Noel tilted up his glass, tilted back his head, rattled ice against his mouth. "We didn't get the vote." "Someone got it," Dave said. "Consenting adults?" "Years later, and it wasn't me." Noel sounded bitter. "A lifetime of work for nothing. Nothing." "Which makes it a little hard to understand," Dave said. "How Curly ended up here. La Calita isn't that big or that popular. Finding the two of you?" "My folks live in L.A., Harv said. "I go there all the time." He was spearing steaks and flopping them onto plates. He yelled at the house, "Somebody better come up and eat these. I mean it," laying new steaks on the grill while the football girls loaded corn and biscuits onto the plates. Harv told Dave above the sizzle. "Now, Dick doesn't agree with me, but I believe that if somebody is gay, it doesn't matter if he is black or white or red all over. He is my brother. I don't care if he agrees about what we should do. I'm talking about politics now. We're on the same side. We can't help but be on the same side. We want the same things, don't we, after all?" "Do we?" Noel said. "Harv, you are a fool." Harv paid him no attention. "And I also patronize gay businesses. It's my policy." He fanned smoke away from his face. "I wanted a piggyback plant for my sister's birthday. I went to Cliff Curley's shop and took your mouth along," Noel said. "Don't interrupt now," Harv told him. But it wasn't the dentist with the peeling scalp and the sun-mummified wife who interrupted. They toiled up the steps, crowing about the good smells. Harv bustled around them, unfolding tube and web chairs, laying napkins across their laps, fetching them heaped plates. That taken care of, Harv went back to the grill, forked over the steaks, and told Dave. "And little Rodriguez was saying how he wanted to get Cliff out of L.A. Well, y'all better believe it. I knew what he meant." Harv glared at Noel. "How you could even speak to him is beyond me," Noel said, "after what Cliff Curley did to us." "Dick, I am not vindictive like you." Harv tossed imaginary curls. "I cannot go on hating people. I certainly cannot go on hating my gay brothers." "I may throw up," Noel said. Harv looked at Dave. "And I remembered that vacant nursery up here in La Calita, going to seed, dying for somebody to take it over. Somebody with a green thumb." "Lavender, you mean," Noel said. "Exactly. If I had my way, every business in this town would be gay. If y'all would stop hating and start loving, this would be a better world. We have got to stick together." "Dick, how many times have I told you that?" 854,000, Noel asked. Harv told Dave, and little Rodriguez drove up here and loved the place, and that's how come Dick, Noel, and Cliff Curley are both in the same little town, and I don't feel one tiny bit sorry. "I expect," Dave said, "Curley feels sorry. Enough for both of you." "Well, it's not my fault," Harv said. "Ben Orton started it. Dick Knowles' father figure. He talks about my big mouth. It was Ben Orton's big mouth that got Cliff Curley all stirred up. Harv turned. Dodo Angie, bring plates. These are done. Dodo and Angie brought plates. Boys in sweatsuits came out the French doors. A boy in a brown and orange dashiki followed. So did a boy in a white terry cloth robe. They made loud vocal noises and plate clattering noises. Butter, somebody said. Parquet, somebody else said. Chairs rattled, unfolding. A green toy balloon came out on an upstairs window, a scrap of paper fluttering from it. The wind caught the balloon, rubbed it along the stucco to a high corner of the house, and carried it off across the scrubby hills. At the window, a boy in a striped tank top wailed, that was my order for room service. Y'all would have looked lovely skewered on my rotisserie, Harv called. You get on down here, Dave said to Noel. Father figure. Harv's never forgiven me. Noel took Dave's arm and led him toward the stairs that climbed beside the house to the gate and rode above. After Ben Orton's foot-and-mouth TV appearance, Noel said, I had him and his wife up here to dinner. You startled me, Dave said. There was no way they could refuse my family-owned this town before the name Orton was ever heard of. Dinner? Dave eyed the terraza, the jumping, jokey boys, the napkins wrapped by the wind around their ankles, the sooty smoke. Here? It wasn't like this. Noel started up the stairs and Dave followed. It was indoors, private and very sedate. Silver candelabra, vintage wine, Spanish lace tablecloth. The shadow of the house turned the tennis court grape juice color. The yellow ball lay there glowing. Noel went on and picked it up. The best bourbon before Chateaubriand. The best brandy afterward. Cuban cigars, Viennese coffee. Sounds persuasive, Dave said. Did it work? Noel grimaced. It lacked a lovely woman. I've heard that about him, Dave said. Then you've talked to someone knowledgeable. Daisy Flynn, Dave said. She was one of the first. Unexpectedly, Noel threw the ball high onto the house roof. He stood waiting, face turned up. A thin, gray-haired kid, a gay, laughing, red-headed Cullen, cub reporter on the Sangre de Cristo bulletin. The ball rode down the tiles, bounced, did a dying fall into Noel's hands. My mother used to write me all the gossip, and somebody gossiped to Louise Orton, right? Noel wandered to a green slat bench. After that, he found a can lying there, dropped the ball into it, fitted on the lid. Our Ben was careful to put geography between Louise and the other woman. Woman? How long did it go on? Dave wondered. As long as he continued to breathe, Noel said. At least. Harv and I saw him at a corner table, very discreet, in a little restaurant. We thought only we knew about Nirvana, it's called, in the hills at Monterey. How long ago? He squirmed at the luminous sky. 6 weeks, 8. He was holding hands with a woman. No longer quite young, but still handsome. Dark, brooding, thick black braids, pottery beads, handmade sandals. I think she runs an art gallery. But then, who doesn't in Monterey? Louise Orton wouldn't know about Nirvana? I doubt she'd know anything 100-odd miles would let her avoid knowing. You would have seen her here that night, smitten with him as a new bride. What you wanted from him was what Curly wanted. Said he wanted, but could never get, Noel said. He didn't understand men like Orton. I did. Do. I grew up among them, right here. Present them with a human problem, any more complicated than hello or goodbye, and they know only 2 things to do. He started up the remaining dozen steps to the tall gate. Fuck it or stomp it. You don't force them. Not into anything. Certainly not anything fruity. Certainly not in public. Dave followed him. Is this what you said on that Daisy Flynn TV show? In different words, Louise Orton told me you were a thorn in his side. At a guess, he could live with that. The evidence says he did. The Warno movie closed. The underground paper, I didn't see a boarded up message parlor, but there was one, wasn't there? If you want to win a fight, Noel used the tight little smile again. You choose issue, time, and place. Only you didn't win, Dave said. Or did you? Noel's hand was on the iron latch of the gate. He turned frowning. What does that mean? Who were you fighting? Orton or Curly? What exactly did Hector Rodriguez tell you? That sometime after the riot, you sneaked back to the nursery and took Curly's leather bag out of the pickup. He didn't see you, he just knows that was how it had to be. You took the bag up to Orton, smashed his head in, and left the bag beside the body to frame Curly. Now you listen to me, Noel said. Cliff Curly's entire life was a headlong rush at self-destruction. He was violent. There was only one way for it to end. Noel swung open the gate. And that's the way it ended. Dave went out onto the dusty road. Something whirred in the hilltop brush. He wondered what kind of insect it was. He'd heard the same sound when he'd walked out of the nursery an hour ago. He looked. Nothing stirred in the long sundown shadows. Where were you when it ended? Where I always am at that hour, Noel said. In a favorite cove of mine up the beach, meditating. His look was steady and mocking. No, don't ask. Nobody saw me. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.